Winterland, tell me all your secrets. Fill me in on your wildest moments. Colored trees, your yellow leaves move me. Dancing roofs, your painted red shakes the room. When I get there, I'll let my feet roam. When I get there, I'll break in your arms, I'll lose control. When I get there, I'll know the answer. Let me know when I get closer. Winterland, you're my sailing ship. Guide me in when you.
Hey everybody, happy Monday. This is Overpass Live. My name is Eric and I make apps. This is the live stream which we haven't done for 3 or 4 weeks. Ooh, I'm kind of wondering whether, it's possible no one's going to show up. This is one of those things. It's been such a long time. Even today I'm thinking, it just seems to be one thing after another. I thought I'd do it, like slow it down a little bit, do it maybe once every couple weeks, and then, last week it was Memorial Day, and I had some family things I had to do, and then it was another thing, where Mondays are, what's this doing up here, from last week? So, it's getting to the point where it's like, Mondays are getting the busy all of a sudden, getting crowded out with stuff, so I haven't done one for a while. I haven't gotten a lot of videos done. Although it was nice to see, even before the video started, I already got a thumbs down. That was good. But thanks everybody for the thumbs up, and thanks everyone for joining. So let's see who's here at the moment. So we got Theo Taylor is in the house. I'm so glad you're back. Nice to see you, Theo. So so what's happened here? God, what hasn't happened in the last few weeks? In England, we got a new prime minister. We got a new monarch. We got a new king. We got the pound is reached an all-time low last week. The lowest a pound was $1.14, I think, if I got that around the right way. But it was like 1.14 for the exchange rate for the pound against the dollar. The lowest point since 1985, which is great. I have been trying to work on this one project where I got this one simple little thing. It was like a Flutter project, which I did a year ago, or maybe just a year and a half ago. And it was one little thing, basically it's a label change. It was a label change. I said, sure, no problem. Eric, how long it take? How much is that going to cost to do this? I'm like, you know what? Just a label change. Let me just make it. I was stuck in dependency hell for days in this Flutter project. One of the underlying projects. Flutter had, I had basically at the end, you try to make, okay, let me just update this library, and then you got these conflicts with all these other libraries and on your pubspec.yaml, and that took days. And then I'm like, oh, this Firebase is the Flutter Fire libraries handle this data differently because I had an older library, so I'm going through and changing all that stuff, all that. In the end, I was after days of just not even getting anywhere, I was just screw it. I just downgraded Flutter to 2.0.3 and just back basically reverted all the code back to the way it was and just ran that thing, and which is probably what I should have done to begin with, but sometimes you have those kind of days where, and it's hard to tell somebody that they're going, oh yeah, hey, where's that change, let us know what's gonna be ready, and you're like, it's hard to explain to a client that's dude, a dependency has been changed somewhere in the background, and I'm trying to get all those dependencies sorted out, and I update so what do I update? The Crashalytics is going to be an issue, Firebase Crashalytics. I update that one, and then of course, that depends on the Firebase core, and then all the other Firebase libraries have to be updated, and then all the other libraries that are dependent on that, and then the next thing you know, you're in this weird situation where nothing matches. This project was one where I actually took a template, and there was so many underlying GitHub repositories that were. Oh, first of all, I hope you guys could hear me, by the way. Which I probably should have checked on that. Let me know if you can't hear me. So yeah, that was the last week, which is a really, really difficult thing to do. So over 2 weekends I spent trying to update this project. What else? What else has been? Oh, we've got new iPhones been announced last week. I totally missed the announcement, which was kind of crazy. But I've been trying to wait to upgrade my my iPhone 11. I'm thinking, all right, this is time to get the latest version. But thinking maybe it's time to go Android for the next round, right? I keep updating the iPhones, and that's like my go-to development environment at the moment. So every time I'm doing coding, I'm usually start with iOS because it's easier on a Mac to do the simulator for me than it is to launch the Android emulator, which for some reason always runs dog slow for me. So anyway, let's see. Who's here? Kevin Althor is here. Hey, Kevin, how's it going? Glad you can make it. Thanks for the emails and stuff. Let's see. Joe's here. Hey, howdy. Howdy, Joe. How's it going? Robert T. Howdy, y'all. Hope everybody's good. I'm doing good. I just realized it's really warm here today. And I had closed the windows because I live on this busy intersection where there's like an ambulance station like just a few blocks down. And when the ambulances leave the station, they just come straight by here. And I've been in Zoom meetings with people where, like a big group meeting, and everybody's all serious, and then everyone's like, "Where's that siren coming from?" I'm like, "Mute, it's me." So anyway, but it's getting hot in here, so I'm gonna start to sweat as we go through the night. Dwayne Smith, hey Eric, how is September so far in AdMob? For me, eCPM is down to 15 to 20%. We talk about let me have a look here. It's one of those things where I can't show you my AdMob, but I can't show you my RPMs is really what it is. But I could. That's a weird thing with in the terms and conditions. You're not supposed to share it because other people have different stuff. Let me bring it up here. Dude, I was just looking at it earlier today. All right, so we've got. So my revenue, like last month, it was actually pretty good. Yesterday it was like 23 pounds. Yesterday I had. Let's see. In the last 7 days, my earnings are 127 pounds. And again, like we said, the pound is really weak at the moment. Although I guess that's like a weak pound and I earn in dollars because the underlying currency is going to be dollars in terms of the ads. That's actually probably a good thing in that way around. And the other thing when you're actually paying for stuff. Earning is a good thing. I say I had 46.2 thousand requests. My match rate was 71.15. 24,000 impressions. My ECPM. My ECPM is down from last week. Actually, let me set it to 28 days. I'll give you this figure. My ECPM is up, actually. My ECPM is up 17% over last month. So, I don't know if that's... yeah, I don't know. It could be different for different people. And a lot of it depends on what country you're in and stuff like that. But yeah, mine is actually up. It's kind of nice to see each day to see that, kind of that healthy thing. And Robert T says, loud and clear. Thanks. So yeah, no. The weird thing about the AdMob is there's so many different variables at play, and I have not updated my libraries in well over a year. Last time I did an update, I just did like a bulk update of all of my language learning games. That was about a year ago, and that's when you have to go through the whole like the Google review process when it starts like removing some of the apps and everything like that. I basically there were times where I spent an entire weekend updating the AdMob libraries and just re-releasing everything. Not even an entire weekend, just like this rote task of just change, whatever, update, submit, update, submit. In fact, I still got to do that. I do the same thing with the Google Play Store entries when there's the new stuff like the data privacy thing. I still have to do for a lot of my applications, which just when you have a lot of applications, it just sucks. But no. So in the end, what I did was I wrote like an automated script, like basically Node.js, using Node.js and using Node.js to copy files and provisioning profiles, everything like that, and then we'll use Fastlane to actually build the APK and to deploy it. I think Fastlane was I was using Fastlane to do the build and the deploy, and it was just kind of cool just to let it go, and it's like boom, just uploads all these apps. But then you start getting all these emails from Google Play saying, "There's an issue with this one. There's an issue with this one." And so in the end, you still have to go back and do like that manual process and everything. I see Theo says, "Oh yes, the new iPhones, Apple Watches, and AirPods." isn't it? It's weird that, like, I was kind of like excited. Like I kept thinking, man, I could use a new iPhone, but I don't need a new iPhone. Every story on the news is about how this is going to be a tough winter, especially in England. Like they're saying, energy prices are going to go up so high. It's like there's just this glumness. This, hey, everything's gonna suck, right? That's basically what the news says. Tonight on the news, everything's gonna suck. So that's what we're looking at. So like, if you're thinking, wow, do I really need that iPhone, or should I hold off on that? And I'm wondering whether or not, I can remember during the 2008, no, it was after 2008, because it was like, there was like a minor recession, and somebody at the Apple store says like, the iPhone is recession proof, and which may be the case, but I wonder whether or not that's going to be the case, going forward. I think, I hate to say this, when I got my Mac back, so actually that's another thing that's happened in the last few, basically yesterday was the 10-year anniversary of my first app going live. So like, my developers in India were working on it. They were supposed to put it live like on the 8th or 9th of September, and they put it live. So they had some problems because apparently they never put anything live before, or there's some problems, and so they go, okay, it's live now. So you look at that, the release date was like September 11th, 2012. I'm like, why did it have to be September 11th? But so it was, that was like 10 years ago yesterday. I just turned 40 at the time. I was really not quite sure how it was going to work. I was still kind of scared. I still was like a bit embarrassed that I spent the money on it, because, I could have coded it myself, but like, it was just, other stuff gets in the way. So I just hired some developers and, to finish everything off, just to basically start everything, because I'd spent the last 10 years, I've worked on that application so many times, and it was like seeing that it was probably a year ago today, or maybe yesterday, where I got my first review, which just said, there's 1 star, says, WTF, this sucks. And I was crushed. I was just like, oh my God. It was like, like that. It wasn't like I was hoping for a runaway hit or anything like that. Although as a developer, every time I put out an app, I'm hoping for a runaway hit. But it was like this, like, I knew I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't want to tell anybody I'd done it. Like, I kind of mentioned to a few people, and it was funny how people thought it was a stupid idea until it went live, and then they were like, everyone was trying to say, you know what you should do, and it was like, and you're just kind of like, dude, I'm trying to watch and learn. And I didn't know any other app developers. I knew other software developers because I worked in, I was a contractor, so I worked in the software field. But I didn't know anybody who knew anything about putting something live and actually selling anything to the end user. So like all that stuff when you study about marketing and like what actually appeals to people, a lot of that came from the reading that came up like after that. Like, it's like I just put something live. The screenshots were just the screenshots, like, it was the app was called Ear Spy. I talked about it a lot in early videos, but like basically the screenshot, there was nothing really to see, right? It was just like, the screen. And so over the years I started like, modifying it a bit, rewrote the description. The developers released it, when they released the iOS version, the keywords were just like, there were no keywords. I think they did ear, spy, microphone. I think that was it. They didn't even ask me what the keyword should be. But to be fair, if they did ask me, I'd be like, I don't know. So then then you start thinking about the keyword stuff. How do you actually get it doing? And then you start learning how to actually deploy these things so that you could actually make these changes on your own. And and then over time, just trying to get that up there. And but I remember that first few days where I thought, especially like this was like this time where I got that first review where I thought, oh well, I gave it a try. I guess I'm gonna just pat myself on the back, say I give it a try. There was nobody else like to say, hey, you need to look at App Store optimization. There was nobody to say, you need to think about maybe change your screenshots a little bit, or how are people actually going to find this, and when they find it, what would actually convince them to download it? Is it clear what it actually does? Nobody said any of that stuff to me. And it was like after a while, I think it was after I released a few more apps, somebody reached out to me, like another app developer, and he said they had this mastermind group, and it was like back in those, like, just 10 years ago. I mean, it wasn't the beginning of the app stores, but it was like, still early on, where people were making money out of like selling shovels, as they say, the gold rush selling shovels. So they were like, although this one didn't seem to be like that, but there were a lot of people in this group that were that way. Like, I'm a consultant, and you know what? I'll tell you what, Eric. I'll tell you what. Let me have a look at your app, and it's like, and so I have somebody, look at my app, look at my store page, and they give me all these recommendations, and it turns out they hardly had any. I had way more downloads than they did, but I'm taking their advice because I don't know anything. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, dude, I am just so lost, and it wasn't until after I got to experiment stuff on my own. Like, I worked with software developers, but when you're working in a company with other software developers, you're kind of like, you're not thinking about the marketing side of it. You're not thinking about the usability. Well, you might be thinking about the usability, like, because you're professional. But like you might, other people have a say over it, saying, I think we need to have consistent buttons or whatever, blah blah blah. So like when you're actually like fully in charge of it, you could say, screw it, let's do it. And then as it got more users, then it was like, ooh, should I make this change? Should I do this? And then, but no, it was 10 years ago. And now what am I doing? I'm living back in my flat. Actually, no, it's been a nice long road. Let's see. Morris says, is ad revenue going down as a recession comes? I don't think necessarily, because if a recession comes, it really depends. What's going to happen? Let's see. What are the two scenarios? People are going to stop spending money, and companies are going to like try harder to get those people to spend money. So like, what do you do when people stop walking into your shop? You think, how do we get them back in? And one of the easiest answers is advertising. So, and if more people start paying for advertising, then those ad spaces are, they get, more and more scarce. So then the ad revenue will go up. They have to pay more just to get those impressions. So that could actually be good for us. Or they might think, if businesses start to shut down and think, you know what, we're just gonna hunker down and try to make it through this thing, then they might not. But I think it could be good for us. Let's see, Deepak says, how to learn advanced Android development. I'm stuck at medium level. I think the one it's the same with all software languages. Like you have a hard time finding a book that says, there's always these books that call like Mastering Android Development, or Mastering Xamarin, or Mastering iOS. And when you actually get them, they start at the same level as the beginner stuff does. It's just like a naming convention. Like, it's probably because they don't have they want to reach the widest audience as possible. I think when you get to the point where you actually have to like get into advanced stuff, it's really, a lot of the times you could either follow someone who's at that advanced level, but again, if you're at that advanced level, if you're ever working with somebody who's like really advanced at something, they're not necessarily putting out content. They're not like, and if they were, they might be thinking, okay, let's do a Hello World program because it appeals to the masses or whatever. They're actually doing stuff where it's hard to convince you. Like for me, I can remember the first time somebody showed me design patterns. And it was like, he was using the decorator pattern. Because design patterns? I'm like, I know, yeah, no, and I thought I did. I didn't know like that was a thing. I didn't know it was a Gang of Four thing. I didn't know whatever. And he's talking about these different software patterns. I'm thinking, and my first reaction was, you're making this unnecessarily complicated. I was not a believer at that point. And it wasn't until you started showing me different things and I started playing around with it a little bit. Same with unit testing as well. You're just making this unnecessarily complicated. And then you start using it and thinking, okay, all right, I see how this, but then you have the burden of explaining to the next guy who comes along why that's important. So like there's a lot of things like that when you get into the intermediate and advanced stuff where you have a much smaller group of people to learn from. So a lot of it is you playing around with the code yourself, looking at some open source projects, thinking why are people doing things the way that they are. and again, and resisting that urge to think, oh, they're just making it too complicated. Like I've seen stuff where they use dependency injection where I think, oh, do we really need dependency injection here? It seems like, I guess it improves testability, but I don't see any tests written around this. But, ultimately, I think there's certain things you pick up. It's like, which is good practice, being able to dispose of your, depending on what language it is, dispose of your objects, all that kind of stuff. So I think really it's a point, I would think you get to a point where you can't watch a YouTube video where somebody says, all right, I'm going to do this really advanced topic in Android, and but my audience, if I go for beginner, my audience is this big, but like if I go for really advanced stuff, my audience is this big. So do they even bother? And that's kind of one of the things I reached the same, like see, my background was I was in the Army a long time ago when I was like 20 years old, and I did Chinese Mandarin, so that was my job. I did that for 4 years. I did Chinese Mandarin, but they sent me back to school to learn Vietnamese. So it was like those two different languages. But ever since, I'm trying to find a book on advanced or intermediate Chinese Mandarin, and it's difficult for them to know what level that you're actually at. Like I could pick up the Renmin Herbao, the People's Daily, and it's like all right, I'm not at that level. I can't just pick it up and just read it. I can with a dictionary and just read one article. It takes me like an hour. This is before we have the you just highlight it and do the dictionary stuff. But yeah, a lot of times. So I think at that point you have to start looking at open source projects, start working on stuff on your own, start to get into that, looking at why people do them. But I think one of the good books to read is, and this is not, it's Java. It is in Java, but the concept is the same. Is head first design patterns. There's these head first stuff, and this one about design patterns was one where it really I thought it was very gimmicky the way it was done. A lot of pictures, lots of diagrams, lots of weird examples, but it clicked for me. I have it on my shelf around here somewhere. Dwayne says, hi, it's boring to update all apps. I too have about 18 apps. Yes, it sucks for all the detail. Dude, Dwayne, I had like hundreds, and it was there were some that I just left fall by the wayside because you go, okay, let me just go through and update them, and it's like, they're not getting a lot of downloads anyway. I can't be bothered. It's like there was no revenue coming through, and you're thinking at one point this app was so important to me that I got the design work done. I spent the hours and the days actually coding it. I did all this stuff, but then you get to the point where like, oh, goodness, I can't. That one's not coming out. Like there's some of my early apps where, a widgets, an app was basically a countdown widget. Called Time Goal, one called Read Racer, which is a speed reading app. That one, these are kind of just fallen by the wayside. It's like I can't. It's but yeah, that's it. That's it. Going through and making these manual changes. I know when when Fastlane came out, that made it a bit easier, but not but you had to think of it in that way. So. Rachel says, do you think demands for mobile apps will worsen during the impending recession, or do you think see devs as being able to weather the storm? I don't. Again, I think enterprise apps will be. I think enterprise apps will be more necessary than your run of the mill, applications. I think. Which is why a lot of the stuff I've been doing has been for business clients, because the businesses have to think, how are they going to improve their processes, and to have a really good developer on that, then that's a good thing. But if you're making a bubble game or a bubble shooter game, I don't know if people and you're trying to earn revenue from it. I don't know whether or not people are still going to be in the market for that. They will. I would think that ad revenue would go up, but I don't know. I think purchases probably go down because people feel more squeezed out of the market. But that's just my that's just what I would think would happen. Not being an expert in that or whatever. Peaceful Guy says, what's this channel all about? On this channel, we talk about erectile dysfunction and family issues. We talk about mobile app development. Let's see. Tom says, with tax and ad mob, if you make the money in March but get paid the next tax year, do you pay tax on the last tax year or the next? Whew, good question. I don't know. I've been doing that for like 10 years now. I mean, it was only like, I think that it's different between Android. Sorry, no, actually, it's different between in-app purchases on Google Play as opposed to ad mob revenue. So your ad revenue, I don't think my accountant doesn't have an itemized breakdown of that, right? That's basically all I do is I get a payment from Google, and my accountant has to just add that into my annual stuff. When it comes to the in-app purchases on Google Play only, not on the App Store, because again, I don't have an itemized, I don't know who's actually bought this stuff, like from which country, and Apple has to handle that stuff. But on the Google side of stuff, like I actually have to do the financial reports, and that will say which countries they come from, and then they know which levels of VAT or VAT MOS or what's it called now? But it used to be called VAT MOS, VAT Mini One Stop Shop, I think. And so they would have to go through and figure out how much I owed for the different countries and stuff like that. So that's different. I mean, the in-app purchases and AdMob is different because, when I get my AdMob purchase, all I know is that those are ad sales, but I don't know when the sale actually happened. All I know is the sale is not from me to the consumer or me to the, I don't get paid on the impression. I get paid, I'm basically selling my ad space to Google. That's the way that I understand it. Let's see. Morris says, Wenderlich has advanced Android app architecture. Oh, okay. And Morris also says, unit tests are useful if your tool chain gets frequent updates or if you have lots of programming turnover. Yeah, I mean, I found there was this one project. I mean, this was like 15 years ago. I remember like putting unit tests into this project. It was like the complexity of the logic was so you're in this meeting and people say, okay, but if it does this, then it does this. But if it does this, then it does this. However, if it's this, then it does this. And you're like, okay, it's like you're trying to do a flow chart of it and everything like that. I mean, that's not really. So that was one of those ones where I thought, okay, I'm going to do this unit test. And I put this unit test in there, and it was like, okay, cool. Like, so, and like 2 years later, I get this call saying, that function you wrote doesn't work. And I go in there, and the project had gone to like an overseas team. Like they were still within the company, but an overseas team. So I go, what? Why did it, like functions don't just stop working. Something has changed environmentally. So I go through, well, like we have these unit tests. I'll run these unit tests, and I'll figure out what the new scenario is. And of course, my unit tests are gone. Like they were like, the developers, the following developers, they couldn't figure them out. Like they didn't see the point in them. So when their stuff didn't compile, they made a change. Their stuff didn't compile. The first thing they got rid of was my unit tests. So you talk about that handover stuff. Like, I was furious about it because basically, like, so once luckily I think I have my own local source code repository as opposed to just theirs. So I went back and got these unit tests out again, and I ran it, and I looked at it. I said, it is failing. And then I looked, and somebody had just put this big, ugly, nasty if statement, to cater for one scenario, and of course it bypassed. It messed up all the other, contingencies, and that was, oh my god. So sometimes, it's good for when you have a lot of programmer turnover, but those programmers have to know what that is. And that's one of the problems that you get if you have a company where there's high programmer turnover, is like the person coming in, I'm not saying it's always the case, but sometimes it's like, let's get somebody cheaper while we're at it. Let's get somebody, less experienced. All they have to do is maintain the thing. And then somebody else comes in and they're like, I can't figure out what they're doing. So, let's see. Kevin says, we have been having rain chances between 50 to 90% for 27 weeks. Dude, we've had like no rain. Well, but we have rain now. It's been raining a lot, but it's been. Let's see. Jeff says, Eric, do you think the USA is heading recession the same as Europe? I guess the US doesn't have the same energy crisis. I think they do. I mean, inflation is everywhere, and I think this is they've been talking about inflation in the States. We've been talking about inflation in the States for months too. Like I think this is gonna be I think this will be a global recession. It's like, I mean, it's so unprecedented because we were so shut down just a few years ago, and now it's people, companies are finding it hard to get people to work there. So so everything's just kind of blah at the moment. And I hate to go to Atlas Shrugged or all that stuff, but Atlas Shrugged is a book by Ayn Rand where it basically was about all the talented people in the world were so tired of being penalized for being talented that they all went on strike. So everything just stopped working. Everything just kind of came a little bit worse. Like, the music was worse, the trains didn't run on time, all this stuff. And it's kind of like to me, that's kind of the way it looks now. And I hate to go into that stuff. That was like, I thought that book was very simplistic in some of the stuff it talked about. Like, I don't think I think I might be a little conservative, but I'm not like staunchly conservative. But like when you look around, you think, dude, is it like that? Is it like these? Are we becoming too easily offended that we put up so many regulations and so many laws that everything just becomes more difficult? The fact that people don't want to work because it's like 2 years ago, so many people were told, you're actually not essential. Like, geez, thanks. Like, so now they say, actually, we want you to come back into the office. And like, see, it was fine. Like, it was fine like 2 years ago. Why should we have to go back in the office? And then everything's just kind of a bit, worse. And it just seems like it'd be this weird storm. But yeah, I do think it's going to hit there too. I think it's going to hit all of us. And that's just my opinion. Like, okay, that's the opinion of an app developer in England standing in his living room. So just put that on. Yeah. Thanks, Eric. No problem. Robert says, for my own apps, I've thrown a lot of things at the wall to see what sticks. Most of my published apps haven't gone anywhere, and 80% of my downloads and revenue comes from 20% of my apps. Yeah, that was definitely the case with me. It was like there's a few of them there, but then I kind of, I still have this hope that the other ones will take off. And I did have that one happen with like Korean Bubble Bath once, where it was like this one, I had all these language learning games, and like the Korean one for some reason just went, like a year after I published it just took off, which was nice. So I keep them on there because, why not? And the only reason they go off is when there's a reason not to, which is there's an update that I have to make. I think one of the cool things about, I said what cool things, like the Apple App Store. Yeah, like I said, I was about to say it's really cool about them, but I don't trust them any further. I could throw them because all the issues I've had with Apple and Google, like it's but at least on the Apple App Store, if an app isn't working, the developer has to decide the next year whether or not they're going to renew that that developer account. So you'll see certain apps that just they're not updated or whatever, they just fall by the wayside. I've got clients that have just decided screw it, didn't work out, so they just didn't renew their Google developer account, and then they might come back later saying, can't find my app on the App Store, and it's like, yeah, it's because those emails you kept getting, that was your job to pay that. But on the Google Play side, it was like, well, why wouldn't I just keep them all? Why don't I just keep them all live? And then you start getting like rejections and stuff like that, or this is, oh, you got to make a change to this one, or you got to go through every single one of your apps and update the is this a news app, for example, or is this a COVID tracking app? It's like, dude, you have to answer this question for every single one of them. Like, doesn't it seem like it should be on the people who actually do have, like those very few people who do have COVID apps to say, yes, this is a COVID one, and the assumption should be like, no, it isn't. But yes, let's see. Theo says, have you tried Flutter for Web? I've tried it. I've just never gotten very far with it. I've tried to like take some of my existing Flutter apps and put Flutter for Web. And what I found was like, there's a good Skillshare. I don't have an affiliate link or anything. I'm just saying, like, I watched a Skillshare video on it, and it seems like it's nice to see some of those, like something that's just focused on Flutter for Web. Because the common scenario I have is I've got the mobile app, which is, I could do it in Xamarin or Flutter or whatever, and then I've got an admin site, and that could be done so that'll be an HTML-based thing. Usually it's Angular. I got this Angular template, and I just keep reusing over and over again. The last project that I wanted to use Xamarin, so I thought I want to reuse those class libraries. So I used I used Blazor, which was kind of cool, but it was still like, it was cool because I found it a lot easier to work with a language that I know better. I've kind of gone off doing stuff on web. Like I'll do as much web as is necessary, but like back in the day, back when I was just a young scrapper developer, I was all into like know how everything in HTML and CSS works, and all the different, especially CSS. When CSS3 came out, it was like, oh, this is so cool. And then now it's like I still revert back to, back in those days it was common to use a table, an HTML table, just for layout. Just like, screw it, I'll put it in the table. And no, but that's not what real developers. You should be using your positioning, CSS positioning to do that, which is like, oh my god, such a pain in the ass. But yeah. So when I saw Flutter Web, and I thought, no, actually this is kind of cool, because at first I resisted it, because I can remember when back when VB Script was a big thing. So we had JavaScript, but then Microsoft came out with VB Script with Internet Explorer, and you could actually write websites with client-side VB Script. And like 10 years later, I ended up having to maintain an app that had client-side VB Script. Couldn't it be? And by this time, Chrome was a big deal. Firefox was a big deal. But this one company, they weren't allowed to upgrade past Internet Explorer 8, and it was like, so they had to keep this one browser live in this code, and it was like way out of date, because they had this thing that was only supported in one browser. So when I saw, and same with Silverlight, Silverlight was a plugin, Flash was a plugin. So when I saw Flutter Web, I kind of thought, oh, I don't like the idea of this, because it's not HTML based. And then the more I started thinking about it, it's like, that's just like an old way of thinking. It's like, oh, it's not a real thing because it's not HTML based. And I think, actually, no, if it renders and and it's supported everywhere, then yeah, why do I care if I have an HTML table? Like, why not just have that everything render on the, what does it use, like a canvas or whatever? And I thought that was really cool, just having that slick design. But then you got to think about other stuff, like, at least in HTML, like the browsers are smart enough to think about accessibility, and like, what if people are sight or hearing impaired? How would they use that? And it's there's so much HTML logic out there. But yeah, I just kind of there was points where I just thought I get to the point where I'm just like, oh, screw it, it's not working. And but if I had a really good project I could sink my teeth in, I think I would. So. Let's see. Morris said, the people that get things done in America have been attacked politically for several years and are now giving up on America. Things are not falling apart because why bother? Hence Atlas Shrugged. I think what I see, and again, I'm living over here, so it's I'm looking at it through the lens of whatever news network I'm watching, and I think about California. Everyone leaving California. Which is where I grew up, and and my whole thing was, I want to go back to California one day. I want to go back, move back there and just live in downtown San Diego in one of those nice little high rises. And then the more I hear about the regulations and how long they were, locked down and everything like that, I think, oh, I don't know, like, and so many people moving to like Florida and Texas. And again, all I know is, I'm on the other side of the ocean, so. Let's see. Morris says Flutter 3 is going to take over 2D casual games. No need for Unity or Unreal. Yeah, I think that was so. The last when they did the Flutter 3 announcement several months ago, they did have that the games toolkit, and I tried using that. It was again, I didn't get very far with it. It seemed to be kind of a. I should look at it again because maybe it's a lot more easy to use. It's difficult to use something when it just comes out because there may be some documentation, but there's not enough. You have an issue, and it could be something like, it's not always, like you're running it. It's like, I'm getting an error that's not in the. I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to do, and it could be something environmental. It could be like usually like you don't have to write. I don't know, like you don't have the right Ruby libraries installed, or you've done some change to your system where something's changed. So like, when something's been out a little while, you can search for that one issue, and you'll find and you're lucky enough to find a Stack Overflow question which is saying, I get this error, this very specific error, which is the same error that I have, and then underneath it somebody says, why are you doing it that way? And you're like, not an answer to the question. Let's see. Nicholas says, I've been watching your channel for years. Oh, dude, I've been doing it for years. And I wanted to thank you for all your videos. I really appreciate it. I'm definitely slacking. Every week I think I got to get a video done this week, and then I think, so I appreciate that. I just learned that I published my first Android app one day before you too. Oh, really? Mine has been far less successful. Well, mine got removed after like 6 or 7 years. So it was like, but the other ones did all right. I mean, like I said, I still get the, on the iOS side, it still does well. The two problems I had was, first of all, my main one kept getting removed. Well, first I had a problem with copycats. That was a big issue. It still is. Like, I don't even search for the copycats anymore because it's like, screw it, you guys win. They copied my icon, they copied the design, they copied my description verbatim. That used to be play whack-a-mole, but I have to report them all to Google Play, like on every few days a week, to the point where I just basically got a VA to do it. Like, okay, every few days, I need you to go, search for these. Like, if it's a similar concept, that's, I'm happy to be the first, but you can't blame Pepsi for doing something similar to Coke, but you could blame Pepsi if they call themselves Poke or whatever. Like, they use the same branding and everything like that, which a lot of these guys did. It was just so blatant on the Google Play side. So I had that issue, and then I had a bit where Google Play started just rejecting it for whatever reasons, and I would go and appeal it, and I would get it put back, and I still think maybe if I just appealed it again, maybe I get it put back. But then after a while, I just thought it's just getting painful. On the Apple side, it was like releasing too many apps, and even now when I release something, it's something completely new and unique, they still say, oh, you need to move all these into a container app. And I'm like, this is not even the same as those other ones. This is completely different. It doesn't make any sense. I'm not going to have one Overpass app which does everything. Like, you download it, it's like, well, you want to, listen to other people. If you want to, improve your hearing or learn a language or whatever, you have to download this one container app. It didn't make any sense. And I think it's because I just was red flagged for putting out too many applications and everything. So that was a big issue. That 4.3 Apple guideline was a pain in my backside. But thank you very much. I appreciate you. Thanks very much, Nicholas, for the kind words that you said. React Native all the way, says Dylan. I don't know. I'm like, there's so I go to this, I go to this boxing gym at night, and I met this guy. He's like, oh, he's a developer too. He's an app developer too, right? And he's a React Native, and I'm like, I'm not a React Native fan. I mean, it's okay. We've done stuff, but I think it's one of those things where I haven't really given it my full. I think my experience from it was, again, so this is what I'm jilted, and I have the same thing with Flutter this week too. So I really not want to talk. Where I had some developers, they were doing this application in React Native, and I thought, okay, cool, right? It's JavaScript. I love JavaScript. I love the fact that it uses the native components, everything like that. But every time they would do a release, like, I had to build it myself to sign it for the App Store, because I think the client didn't want us giving them the distribution certificates or something. And every single time I had to figure out why the dependencies I had were wrong. Like, why, I was stuck in dependency hell, just, doing the, updating that package.json file, trying to figure out what I have that's missing. Every time I do npm install, it was just something not there. And again, I say this because I had the same thing happening running Flutter pub get on the Flutter side, where it's just one underlying dependency changes and everything else breaks. But that's why I never everything. So also it was like this app where I thought, well, okay, we could do one code base for both web and mobile. And of course the developers, we tried to do a PWA of the same application later, and they were like, no, we got to rewrite it from scratch, and they black boxed it. They didn't even use the existing code. It was crazy. Which has nothing to do with the thing, but I'm glad you like React Native. I know lots of. All right, so for those guys who are React Native developers out there, just put in the comments, or even if you watch this after the fact, put in the comments, React Native is awesome, and if you're not a fan, then don't. I was going to say React Native sucks, but like, no. Okay, well, obviously Theo agrees. So, yeah, I'm not, yeah. It's one of those things where I remember there's a big rivalry between ASP and Java web applications 20-something years ago. And it was like the Java guys were convinced that ASP was crap. And the ASP guys were like, we can figure out why anybody would do a website in Java. Jeff says, and by the way, I hope I didn't offend anybody out there, because it's a good language. There's so many good developers out there that do it. Jeff Ply was saying, any recommendations for a good place to get sound effect files for apps? I use for our recent one, I used Audio Jungle. I used Artlist.io, just because we use it for like some of the videos. Like, so I had like Artlist.io, but that's more of a subscription thing. In the past, I've used Envato Elements, or just use Envato and go through and buy stuff. It's where I get like the music for the applications and all that stuff. So, and then, there's also no. But there's all these open source ones. What was this one? There's one called H3s. I can't remember. I wish I had a bookmark still. But yeah, there used to be these open source. There was like loads of open source stuff. So like if you want music, then I think Envato would be good. Like if you want music or whatever. But if you want like a swoosh sound or a coin ping or something like that, then yeah, there's loads of open source places out there that you can get that from. Like you don't have to pay for. I wish I remember what they were right now. There was one that had like this name. It was like an acronym name, I think. It was so old. Like you basically just generated the WAV files for you, like through some browser-based tool. Let's see. Morris says, every app is a success if you learn from the experience. Yeah, but we all kind of, it may not be the success that we hope it will be. But yeah, there's a lot of times I've been in jobs where I was, it's the skill. Like I've gotten like moved from one contract to another because of a skill that I got, like just tinkering around with my own code, right? When you learn about this kind of stuff. Or I'll be in a meeting with somebody who says, is there any way we could do this? I'm like, yes, we can, because I try to do this on my own project, all this stuff. And you get those you get that, that experience doing new stuff. Morris says, I would never trust anything from Mark Zuckerberg. Yeah, but I get what you're saying, but do you think Zuckerberg is really like with the React Native guys going, you don't think like, even like with Microsoft, like when, I want to trust Bill Gates. I say, yeah, but like the C# team is probably like, way beyond him. Like there's people with it. I'm sure there's React Native creators out there that are like, they genuinely want to do something that's really cool for the community. They're not like, what can we do to screw with people? Like, how can we, invade their privacy or whatever? It's, I think, Zuckerberg, he's the head of the thing, but he's, hires other, his underlings. It's like, it's like, was it like blaming the, not being able to appreciate what the Secretary of Transportation does because you don't like the president or something like that. It's like, it's, they, maybe it's like, vanilla React Native is rough. But Expo is the missing sugar. Well, what? You sound like you're from the 70s action movies. Yo, vanilla React Native is tough, but Expo's the missing sugar. Yeah. Oh, interesting. I don't even know what Expo is. Let's see. Morris says, very true. I've learned a lot from experience for sure. Getting a small deposit from AdMob every several months will always be a nice surprise too. Yeah, that was it. I remember the first time I made just a little bit of money from that. It's like, this could work. Like I got that little, this is one of the reasons why I got in trouble with Apple, because I retrieved so many apps. I was like, if this only makes like a couple dollars a month, I just need a few hundred of these. And then, you start, do all that reskinning and stuff. And then they start saying, no, you can't do it. Nope. You move all these into one application, which is just crazy. But let's see. Dwayne Smith says, how many employees work at Overpass? We have 3. Well, me and I have a team of 2. We used to have more, but and I say employees are more freelancers. So I've got Ren, who's my social media person, and I've got Sandy, who's my designer. Sandy's been working with me since 2014. So like it's, and there's times where I'm just like, I'm busy working on other stuff and she doesn't have a whole lot to do. But I've had people say like, where can I find icons like you have in your apps? And it's like, dude, she does them. Like, it's nice to have that. That's the one skill where I'm terrible about being, because I've had projects where I've been, working with like a whole team of developers in India, or like coordinating between, developers in different countries, and just sort of being the pinnacle of it. And I've had other ones where I'm just like, screw it, I'm just going to develop this one myself, because I get that, just drive me crazy. It's like times where I'm like, the stress, the sleepless nights I've had worrying about some developer thousands of miles away who can't seem to figure out how to do one simple thing, and I have to figure it out for him. And I'm just like, I'm laying in bed, just like, like when I do the videos, maybe it makes it look a bit glamorous, but there's time where I'm like laying in bed, like just like, I'll bet it's not done. He promised it tomorrow. I'll bet it's not done. I'll bet it's not done. And you know what? And when he says it's not done, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say that, and I'm like just getting all worked up. And it's like finally in the end, it's like I'm just gonna get up and pace around the house. Might as well. At one point, there was a lot more people. But, if you watch the videos, at one point, I was in an office. I've been in a few offices over the years. Then it was like right before the pandemic hit, almost like strangely, like right before the pandemic hit, I'd moved out of the office and into this apartment. And I do like just getting up and coming in here, everything. So. Morris says, Zuckerberg tried to put a clause in the React Native license agreement not to compete with any Facebook businesses, but they removed it after a big backlash. Ooh, oh wow. I stand corrected. Huh. Theo says, Expo Dev. Yeah. Just drop a dot in between those. Oh, expo.dev. Let's have a look. Making that run everywhere. Okay, I'll have a look at this. So, like, a lot of time when you got these libraries that make something, like there's one, a lot of stuff in C#, like Prism and stuff like that, which a lot of people use, or Light MVVM, where, they're really good, but then you have this dependency on some other person's code as whether or not they keep it up. So, of course, you could say the same thing about like jQuery or whatever, which is still around. Let's see. Theo, Dylan says, I agree that Expo makes RN very easy. Myself, I had to remove a bare RN project a lot of times in the past, though, when I needed more advanced functionality. Ooh, yeah, well. Let's see. Morris says, if I work with a girl long enough, I will try to marry them. Dude, look. This is a problem. This is a problem with the IT industry, right? We got too many men in it. Like, we need, we can't just, well, that's funny. All right. Let's see. Dwayne says, wow, it's you code all the client apps alone? That must be tough to manage, code multiple projects. Yeah, a lot of times I'll have like other developers working on it. Sometimes it'll be fall to me to finish it off, like either developer. Like, again, I say this because I've got so many people contact me with their projects. They say, we hired this development company and we just don't have any confidence in them. Can you finish this? And then so like, so I've had that similar thing too, where I just, I'm the one finishing off this project. And there's times where I'm just, I sit down, like today, like this weekend I had 2 projects to work on. I had the Flutter project, which again was a simple label change. It took like most of the weekend. And I got this other one, which is a UWP Xamarin based application. Xamarin, but like we're doing the UWP version. So I'm trying to get that done. And we got some weird bug that I'm trying to reproduce. Like, it's like, I'm not getting this. So those 2 different things, I'm going through those different, and then I got the, on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, I work at contract work for another client. So that's, and so then that's, one of those days I focus specifically on that. So there's times where it can get a bit confusing, where you're looking for some. I know there's some code there. Where's that function? You're like not even in the right project, not even for the right client. But let's see. Until then, says, don't you ever have a need to go native Android, like performance issues, etc.? I haven't really found that. You might have to. It depends on what you're trying to do. Like a lot of these frameworks, they like if you were to do like a game from scratch, like not using a game engine, you need that high frame rate, then yeah, maybe you would. You got like if you use like one of the nice things about Xamarin is that you can like do client specific code using basically it's like a map of the same functions but in C#, which it's not that difficult like to interpret them, but you still got the overhead of you have that whole Xamarin framework on top of that. So you could, but I've never experienced that yet. I've never had an issue with somebody saying it's too laggy or it's too slow. I mean, and the thing is, it's like, I always think about this back in the early days of Java, when people were using Java like for GUIs, like for actually front ends, and everyone said the same thing: Java's too slow. It's just too sluggish, right? And you know what happened? Computers got faster and faster and faster. It became not an issue anymore. Like, and that's kind of the way we get. Like phones just get, they get faster. Every single new device that comes out has faster processing, faster everything else. So like those issues that you might have with performance with the overhead of that framework become less and less an issue as time goes on. So like you read something like from 10 years ago, it talks about like even back then it was like doing Ionic stuff, and it was like, oh, that web view stuff. It's like, it's just, it's fine if you just do like a forms based app, but you can't do anything like, really high, like with a high transaction rate, but you can, because it just gets faster and faster, the processor. So Rachel says, would you recommend trying to do everything yourself in-house or hire experts for marketing, ASO optimization, etc.? I think you need to hire. I think you should hire somebody, because like something gets left off. Like I have a social media person, and every so often I think I can do the social media myself. The thing is, when I do, like, I could have done the social media myself before, and I didn't. It's like it's better to have somebody who could just focus on that one thing. But I want to kind of know what it is. I don't like the this is like probably not good of me as a, we're talking about like thinking as an entrepreneur or whatever, is that I don't like giving somebody a task that I don't know how to do. I want to know how it works, right? I want to, like, if they have an issue, I again, this goes, to code especially. I hate, like, I've been to companies like consulting, and they are beholden to one developer who tells them something that's totally, not true, like, or that they're not necessarily lying, but they don't know. I remember somebody saying like, Internet Explorer doesn't have, it doesn't support cookies or something like that, and it was like, dude, like, it was like this, like, early on, it was like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, it was just like, it was just something that he kind of like, he came to that conclusion, and but it became gospel around the whole company, because that's what I was like, oh yeah, we got this cookie issue with Internet Explorer, like, because of one guy said it, right? And it was kind of sad to see this one, the blind leading the blind here. Like, one guy could just say something, and there's no repercussions. There's nobody's going to come in and say, actually, a lone developer is saying this stuff, and that bothers me. I never want to be in that situation where like somebody says something to me and I don't know, I'm like, are you sure? Or there have been times, even like we're talking about the React Native project, we did, like, going back to React Native, where they were telling me something wasn't possible, and so I had to kind of like get up to scratch with React Native enough that I could start Googling it myself, and of course it was possible. I think, that was one where I actually wrote some code to do it for them. Said, look, just do this, and they're like, because sometimes you work with people that, they jump to a conclusion and they think, oh, might as well give up. It's not possible to do. And you're like, oh no, there's always a workaround. So when it comes to ASO optimization, I hate again, I've talked to ASO people. I've hired, I did have one guy on the team for like, I think 2 months. It was like supposed to be the ASO guy. And I think it was just like, I hated the fact, like, actually, Eric, there's a thing called black hat and white hat. And I'm like, yes, I know that. Yeah, but see, so this would be like a black hat. This would be like, I was like, yeah, I know that. But like, what if we just did this, this, and this? It's like, yeah, so let me have a think about that. And it was like, I hate hiring somebody who just like, they want to just show how smart they are. Because everything what the ASO person says, by the way, it comes back to you making some change to the code, right? If you have an ASO person who can't code, they might make you recommendations. It's like, dude, I don't need somebody to tell me what to do because you don't know for sure. I had a guy in China. We put our app live in China, and he was trying to tell me why EarSpy didn't work as a name, and why the icon needed to be changed. And he sent like an alternate icon with like with a little cartoon character on it, and it was just like, it's called, what about earfun? And it was a guy going, hey, and I'm like, dude, you would not get the whole, what we're trying to do with this application. I've hired SEO people to do the same thing too. Like, come back and go, I've been looking at your site, and I think you should put the phone number at the top of the page. I'm like, that's it? Like, you can't even do that. Like, you just basically go through and tell me to do stuff. Like, you know what? And basically all you have to do is read a book to figure out all this stuff. So, but when it actually comes to actually doing something like posting social media posts, come up with new stuff, then that's different. And I think when the AS, so marketing, yeah, maybe, but a lot of it goes back to you to actually set the tone and stuff. Theo says, Dylan, is way easier now with their dev client. Oh, I'm still talking about Expo. Morris says, Flutter 3 can natively target every major platform. That is a huge benefit. iOS, Android. Yeah, I know. It's like, let's see. Until then says, can you rank mobile cross-platform technologies in your opinion? I think, yes. I think I still like Flutter the best, even though most of the time I use Xamarin. Xamarin is like like I said, the common scenario I have is admin site for like, I suppose I could put the admin features within the application itself, but sometimes I just like having a website that the administrators go on. Have an admin site, which is web-based, and then having the application, which is on the app stores. And might as well have you could have a desktop, depending on the application itself. So I like the fact that Flutter covers all of those. Xamarin doesn't do that. Like, you can't have like a Xamarin, even with a .NET MAUI, you can't have like a web-based thing. You do like a MAUI Blazor application, which is kind of very new. So that's that I kind of see as a shortcoming. React Native is just one I don't like. I know really smart people who do React Native, and I'm not sold on it. I think it's just one where I haven't fully gone down that road. See what else. Ionic is another one, but I stopped being a fan of Ionic years ago. I struggle so much with existing Ionic code and dependencies and stuff like that I'm just, sometimes you're like, again, the person who asked about Android native, like, sometimes it's just easier to do something from scratch than to have to learn somebody else's framework. But yeah, I think, I do think that Flutter's probably that one that, again, because I got so many projects that are Xamarin based lately, that I'm kind of like, that's like my native language now at the moment. Like, if you're speaking another language, you think, well, I know these two different languages, but if given the choice, I speak English better. Like, Morris says, there's no way to tell if ASO is working or not. Well, there is, because you got the data.ai, which used to be called App Annie, where you can see how things are ranking. You could start to see how things are being found, and start looking at that, start measuring that kind of stuff. But a lot of it is just theory in the beginning, and that's one of the things that I don't need somebody to come in with theory, like because it's like, it's a lot of it is you just have to try something. If it works, great. If it doesn't, try something else. and see what what works. But and Moore says .NET MAUI is supposed to be Microsoft's answer to Flutter. Yeah, it's one project, everything like that, but I don't know. Microsoft always has an answer to something, doesn't it? Silverlight was their answer to Flash. VBScript was their answer to JavaScript. Right? It's, yeah. I still like Flutter, but well, I think that's the last question. I know usually there's a lag, and that'll be something that comes in after I end the call, like 3 or 4 questions will come in right away, but. We're just on over an hour. I think we're gonna end it here. Everybody, hey, thanks very much for showing up. Thanks for the thumbs up and everything for those of you guys who did it. Okay, last question. Here we go. What architecture are you applying as of now? Right now, I use for server. So if it's my own, like if I have full reign over the architecture. So like if it's not for a client that has certain requirements, I still prefer Firebase, using Firestore as the database. I mean, it depends. If it's like transactional, I will use MySQL, but I really like just using Firebase functions, just having everything in one project. So like the last 4 projects I've done have been Firebase. So we've got the applications on the app stores because we have to use that for push notifications anyway, Firebase. So like Firebase is in the picture regardless, but so we might as well put the Firestore database. Use Firestore for the database. I use the authentication for authentication, and then use Firebase hosting to host that admin site. So everything is in that one nice, tight, contained area. And I kind of like that, just not having loads of different dependencies. In the past, we've had I've got this Linux server running on this Linux server droplet running on some other, some platform. No, I did have one like a bunch of servers on AWS. I've had servers on AWS, a few on DigitalOcean. That's the one, because it was a little bit cheaper. I've had stuff running on Heroku, and there's so much different, technology all over the place. So it makes sense to consolidate on just 1 or 2 different places, or ideally just one. So. Anyway, I'm going to end the call here. I'll try to get a video out this week. I really got slacked off. I apologize for that. Thanks everybody who joined the live stream. Thanks everybody for the thumbs up. I really appreciate it. Hope you guys have a great week ahead. That is it for today. I'll talk to you guys again. Let's do this again next week, shall we? Or what do you say? 2 weeks? Should we do it next week? 2 weeks? If you guys want to show up next week, we'll do it next week. And let's see. See you guys later.